Get all my ducks in a row. You can use these. Yes, we can.
Good evening. The time is 5:20 p.m. and I would like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome those who are participating in the Board of Education meeting in person and those watching the meeting via live stream on YouTube. We would ask that anyone addressing the board to please use the microphone at the podium and to identify themselves for the record. As a reminder, the link to the meeting is on the district webpage under the Board of Education. The streaming will run through the end of the meeting. In the event there's a disruption in streaming, I will pause the meeting until it is reestablished. Tonight, Board Member Sonia Simoya is not in attendance. Okay, well, Mr. Montoya, will you please lead us in Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Superintendent Chavez, would you please announce the meeting?
This meeting has been announced in accordance with the New Mexico Open Meetings Act and the Los Lunas Schools Open Meetings Resolution and is a legally constituted meeting of the Los Lunas Schools Board of Education.
Okay, Ms. Chavez, are there any changes or deletions to the agenda?
Board President Otero, there are no changes or deletions to the agenda this evening.
Okay, with that, I would stand for a motion regarding the approval of the agenda.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the agenda as published.
We have a motion by Mr. David Vickers to approve the agenda as published. Do I have a second?
I second.
We have a second by Dr. Osowski. Ms. Sanders, how do you vote?
Discussion.
Yes.
Were there exceptions?
To the agenda?
Oh, not to the agenda, no, sir. How do I vote? I vote yes.
Okay. Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Osowski, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. It passes by a vote of 4-0. Okay, we'll move to item E in the agenda. That's a report on the closed executive sessions held on July 14th, 2026, and on July 21st, 2026, for the discussion of limited personnel matters, specifically the superintendent's evaluation pursuant to NMSA 10-15-1 H2. As announced and posted in accordance with the New Mexico Open Meetings Act and the Los Lunas Schools Board of Education Open Meetings Resolution, a quorum of the Los Lunas School Board of Education participated in 2 closed executive sessions. On July 14, 2026, they went into closed executive session from 5:20 p.m. to 7:11 p.m. This evening, they went into closed executive session beginning at 4:15 p.m. To 4:14 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. I attest that the discussion was limited to that is stated in the motion to go into closed executive sessions, and no decisions were made, and that no action was taken. Okay, we'll move to item number F on the agenda, that's public comment. Superintendent Chavez, do we have any requests for public comment?
Board President Otero, there are no requests for public comment this evening.
Okay. We'll move on to the consent items. At this time, I'd stand for a motion regarding the consent items.
Mr. President,
Dr. Osowski.
I move to accept the consent items as follows. H, approval of minutes 1 through 3. N, approval of handbooks, items 1 through 4. Item O, I'm sorry, we have, with the exception of, let me restate that. Item N, approval of handbooks. Item 1, Los Lunas Schools Athletic Handbook. Item 3, Los Lunas Schools Transportation Handbook. And item 4, Los Lunas Schools Employee Handbook. Item O, Finance Committee items, numbers 1, A through E. Number 2, A and B. Number 3, A and B. Number 3, or I'm sorry, 3 is actually A through H. Number 4, A, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, and 13.
All right, I'd stand for a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Osowski to approve every consent item on the consent sheet with the following exceptions. Item N, 2, Los Lunas Schools Facility Use Handbook. Item number 09, approval of memorandum of understanding between Opiate Remediation Collaboration, a New Mexico Public Health Collaborative, and Los Lunas Schools. And we have a second by Ms. Sanders. Mr. Rickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Osowski, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Sanders, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The vote passes by a vote of 4-0. Okay, we'll move on to item number I on the agenda. That's the presentation and approval of notice of sale of the Los Lunas School District's 2026 general obligation bonds and a delegation of authority. Superintendent Chavez.
Thank you, Board President Otero. I would like to actually invite Ms. Tracek to the podium first to introduce our guest.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, we have Kaylee from representing from our RBC. So.
Good evening, President, members of the board. My name is Kaylee Weinrich with RBC Capital Markets. I'm here today because in front of you is a resolution that will allow you to go forward with the sale of up to $6 million of general obligation bonds with the State Treasurer's Office. Before we get to the consideration of approvals, though, I do have a brief finance plan update for you tonight. And so I believe they'll be able to bring it up on the screen, and you should also have printouts in front of you, but please let me know if you need a printout. Can I jump into it? Yeah. Well, sorry. This one. Sorry, wrong blue cover. There we go. All right, perfect. All right, so then to just jump into it, on our first slide, we have the district's history of assessed valuation. Looking at our current tax year, tax year 2025, the district's assessed valuation grew by 6.2% to $1,462 million. When we look a little bit closer at the data, we can see that the growth was primarily fueled by your residential values, which grew by 6.7% compared to your non-residential values, which only grew by 2.7%. You know, this is especially impressive considering considering those veteran exemptions came onto the tax rolls this past year. So as a reminder, back in the November of 2024 election, voters approved some amendments to the veterans exemptions. The first one expanded the standard veteran exemption from $4,000 up to $10,000. We did see that impact your tax rolls. Last year, the veteran exemptions made up $7.4 million. This year, though, for tax year 2025, we saw that jump to $17.4 million. You know, veterans who already signed up for that $4,000 exemption, they were just auto-adjusted up to that $10,000. You know, the other exemption we have is for the disabled veteran exemption. In the past, a veteran had to be 100% disabled in order to qualify for 100% property tax exemption. It was all or nothing before. Now it's been amended to be able to have a veteran qualify for property tax exemption by their level of disability. So now a veteran who is 40% disabled can qualify for 40% property tax exemption, you know, 70%, 70%, so on and so forth. You know, looking at the data, we didn't see your disabled veteran exemption increase that much. Last year, that value was $37 million of property tax exemption for disabled veterans, and in our current tax year, it was only jumped up to $45.5 million. Essentially, the disabled veteran exemption hasn't fully been rolled out yet. You know, talking to a lot of county assessors, a lot of disabled veterans didn't know they could file for the exemption. There just wasn't a lot of communication. You know, so with that in mind, we are anticipating that that could impact your assessed valuation, which we include in our financial planning. But again, it's still quite impressive to see that your assessed valuation, your residential values grew by 6.7%, even with that increase in the standard veteran exemption. The next slide, we have the list of your major taxpayers. That number one taxpayer, that ET Los Lunas LLC, that's actually the Meta data center within your community. I'm happy to see those tax values come into your assessed valuation. So all in all, your top 10 taxpayers, you know, that makes up about 12% of your assessed valuation. Moving on to the next slide, we have the district's history of tax rates. The district has its 50-cent operational mill levy in place, along with an SB 9 and a House Bill 33 for $5. Additionally, you have levied an $8.15 debt service tax rate for your general obligation bond program. Our current plan of finance is based on keeping your GO bond debt service tax rate at its current level, you know, that $8.15. We started the tax rate setting process with PED for next tax year 2026, and we're not anticipating any fluctuations within your debt service tax rate. You know, additionally, too, the $6 million sale tonight is a part of your plan of finance to keep that tax rate level. So the approval of the $6 million of GO bonds tonight will not increase taxes, but rather, you know, continue to keep them level. On slide 4, we have the district's current debt service requirements. The district has 12 GO bonds outstanding for a total of $39.2 million. Historically, you guys have used both public markets and the New Mexico Finance Authority as underwriters for your bond issuances. We're looking at selling with the State Treasurer's Office for this 2026 bond sale. You know, we'll talk a little bit more why we decided to go with the State Treasurer's Office shortly, but coming back to our outstanding debt, you know, at the bottom of this slide, we have a bar chart of your outstanding principal and interest payments. You'll see that, you know, they're structured to be rapidly declining. That's on purpose. You know, it's great for interest cost savings, but it also allows, you know, debt to be paid off rapidly so that we can layer in future debt issuances without needing a tax rate increase. Again, with that rapid payoff schedule, the 2026 bonds, we're planning on only having a 1-year maturity. So our plan with this issuance is that it'll be completely paid off. That full $6 million bond will be paid off in 2027. On the next slide, we have debt management plan overview. So Constitution limits amount of bonds outstanding to 6% of the district's assessed valuation. You know, for Los Lunas schools, that's $87.7 million. The reason why we're not going to try to, you know, sell to that max amount is because of your tax rate capacity. You know, the plan of finance calls for this $6 million to be sold now. Your AV growth assumptions, again, next year we're anticipating your AV to potentially drop by 3.5%. That's just being conservative in case, you know, we see those disabled veteran exemptions hit your tax rolls a bit harder. But after that, we really are anticipating a 2% growth rate, you know, every year and thereafter. And that's pretty conservative too when we kind of look at how aggressive, you know, your residential growth rates have been. But again, we like to be conservative as bond advisors. Additionally, for the bond tax rate, as I had mentioned, our goal is to maintain your tax rate at $8.15. And again, the district also has that SB 9 and that HB 33 mill levy in place for $2 and $3 too. Looking over at the next slide for finance plan overview, for your general obligation bonds, excuse me. Voters approved $24 million to be sold back at the November 2023 election. We have since sold $12 million of that authorization. We're planning on selling the next installment of $6 million now, and then we'll sell the last and final installment sometime in 2027. After that, we won't have any election authorization left, and then we'll be scheduled to go back out to voters to ask for GEO-bond authorization at the November 2027 election. That amount ultimately depends on the assessed valuation. We get preliminary data for next year in the next coming weeks. Once we get that, we'll have a better idea of what that election size will be. But again, the main goal is to maintain your $8.15 GEO-bond tax rate. For the 2026 bond sale, due to the district's very strong growth in the assessed valuation, it's anticipated that the district will roll over $3.1 million of excess property tax collections into next year, into calendar year 2027. So that combined with, next year's collections is why we're able to structure this 2026 issuance to be able to be paid off within 1 year. We have a pros and cons on the next page of trying to doing a traditional New Mexico Finance Authority financing versus the State Treasurer's Office. The pros with going with the NMFA is that, they issue their bonds on a tax-exempt basis. But with this being a 1-year maturity, that rate, it doesn't make that much of a big impact. It would make a bigger impact if we were selling taxable versus tax-exempt, if it was a 10 or 15-year-long maturity. Then the interest expense really makes a difference. And because the NMFA does sell on a tax-exempt basis, generally there is a lower interest cost associated with those tax-exempt financing with the NMFA. So why go with the State Treasurer's Office? Really, the answer is flexibility and control over the funds for you guys. So when we sell with the State Treasurer's Office, they sell the bonds on a taxable basis. Essentially, by selling it on a taxable basis, then we don't have any federal spending requirements to get those bond proceeds out the door. So, because of IRS law, essentially issuers need to sell all of the bond proceeds, spend all of the bond proceeds within 3 years. Technically, it's 85% within 3 years and then 100% out the door within 5 years. The New Mexico Finance Authority has an internal policy that they want all of the bond proceeds to be out the door within 3 years. Evaluating this, an issue with that is that, PSFA and PSCOC, they've announced that they're going to take a break on awards this upcoming year. So with that in mind, we felt that it would be in the district's best interest to sell these bonds on a taxable basis, because then you guys would be able to hold on to those bond proceeds for as long as you need for when you guys are ready to spend on those projects. Another benefit too is that if we sell these on a taxable basis, Uncle Sam has already gotten his cut, he's already gotten paid, and so with that, you guys can go ahead and invest those bond proceeds and allow those bond proceeds to sit in investments until you guys are ready to spend them. Essentially, we have less issues with IRS rebate if we sell it on a taxable basis. I'm trying to look additional on this page. And then another nice thing too is that the State Treasurer's Office isn't as stringent on what the bond projects are. At the New Mexico Finance Authority, they'll want to know what the bond projects are, how you guys are doing on them, when you're going to spend those proceeds. If you change your projects, we need to get that approved by the NMFA again. Again, there's just a lot more flexibility issuing at the State Treasurer's Office. And because we're only issuing these bonds for 1 year, the interest expense doesn't make a big enough difference. It really seems like the flexibility benefits you guys the most. So for a time schedule, on the next slide, we have just an overview of this issuance with the State Treasurer's Office. So with today's approval, we'll then be able to go ahead and set the rate with the New Mexico State Treasurer's Office on August 27th. We've already sent them a preliminary draft to the State Treasurer's Office, just asking for that $6 million of funding. We haven't seen any issues so far. Our plan is to set the rate on August 27th, and then our plan is to close the bonds on September 22nd, which is when funds will be available for the district to spend. And then one of my colleagues will likely be back here on September 22nd to tell you guys how that bond sale went. In the back of my presentation, I have further information about the constitutional amendments. I also have a brief market update in the back too. But like I said, since these bonds will only be outstanding for one day and we're going through the state treasurer's office, you guys won't be subject to as much market risk or interest risk with this issuance. I'm happy to go over anything in the back, but with that, I'll stand if there's any questions for me.
Okay. Board members, have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Dr. Osowski?
Not immediately. I do have one. Did you say our bond would be outstanding for one day?
1 year.
Okay.
Yep.
That's, all right,
Yeah.
review.
I don't have any questions. I've done this for a number of years, and you did a really good job of explaining this.
Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and take this to a vote. And so at this point in time, I'm going to ask for a motion.
Mr. President,
Yes, Dr. Osowski?
I move to approve the proposed sale of bonds as presented for this fiscal year.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Osowski to approve the purchase of bonds for this fiscal year. Do I have a second?
Just a point of discussion. Should we add in there and delegation of authority?
I had listed as two different motions, so you do the second motion.
Within the same, within the same. It says notice of sale of the Los Lunas School District 20.
Let me amend my motion. Mr. President, I
Yes.
move to approve the notice of sale of the Los Lunas School District's 2026 general obligation bonds and the delegation of authority to RBC.
Okay.
And I will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Osowski. We have a second by Ms. Sanders. Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Osowski, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Sanders, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. The board approves this, the sale for, by a vote of 4-0. We're going to take a 5-minute break to sign paperwork, and we'll continue the meeting.
Great.
We need someone to sign for Sonia.
I'm going to go to Western.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, we'll move, continue our meeting. We'll move on to item number, J.
Yep.
Right now?
Mr. President, do you need to call the
Okay,
meeting
well-
back to order?
Okay, here we go. All right, we're going back into our meeting. All right, we'll move to item J on the agenda. That's presentation and approval of standard operating procedures for safety and security department. Superintendent Chavez.
Thank you, Board President Otero. So we are presenting our standard operating procedures manual tonight for the Safety and Security Department. This is a requirement as part of our board policy for the Safety and Security Department. I have worked very closely with Ortiz and Zamora, who have in turn worked with Palms and Associates. We have two of those members of the team here tonight, as well as our lead SRO, Pat Guieta. And we just have a second lead SRO that started yesterday, Abraham Henson. So we have our two lead SROs. Our lead SRO Henson is not able to join us tonight, but lead SRO Yetta is here as well. So I'm going to invite our two guests up to the podium. We have Mike Jones from Ortiz and Zamora, and Jim Vautier. Perfect. Okay, I practiced, from Palms and Associates. So we will project the SOPs, as we refer to them, standard operating procedures, and I will invite our two guests to provide a description of how these were reviewed and the process that occurred.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. So these are the, Mr. Vautier and my office, we've been working with the superintendent for several months now on all these, and we'd sent out some changes, and while they've been made, we focused quite a bit on a couple different areas: firearms training, body-worn cameras, use of force and use of restraints, and making sure everything fits New Mexico law. And to be honest with everyone, we're almost there. There was a couple of things, we've made some changes at the last minute that weren't completely done, and I would recommend that at this time, we be allowed to move this on to the next meeting, because there's a couple things left in today's final draft that I've noticed that we needed to make a couple changes, and I don't think that it's quite proper at this time to make the final approval. We rewrote quite a bit of it, and we also deleted some of it, but what we have now, what is in existence right now from the previous approval will be good for now, but we want these final changes to be correct, and there's a couple changes on specifically, sorry, I've got my notes right here, on page 44, and we wanted to give you a couple different pages of some.
Mr. Jones, can you refer to the actual section? This handbook is not numbered, and we will add numbers.
Oh, sorry, yes, that is correct. It would have been on section use of force procedure 7-10.
So, Mr. Jones, what I'm understanding is that this is for discussion so that we can review the items and then bring it back at the next meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Sorry. As I've gotten older, it gets slightly harder to see that far away, so I apologize. It's not quite the right page. But if you're on that page 710, that would give us, section 710 talks about the deadly force. And I was using it as page 4, wanted to add that. Also wanted everybody to review sections 9-04 and through 9-010 dealing with firearms and firearms approval, and that's great, but we just wanted to make a couple more changes. That's what I want the board to kind of pay attention to, have an opportunity to do that. And then finally, there were some questions about firearms qualification. That's also in section 910, and we can do that. And then finally, there was a new form page, the felony review form that was on at section in section 13 and section 14. This is to protect both students and staff and the law enforcement, just to make sure everybody knows where firearms are stored, how they're kept. The other part is making sure that all the New Mexico laws are followed and all our officers are trained. I know we do have some great officers from Officer Guerrera, School Resource Officer Guerrera has been with us for in law enforcement for quite some time, and he has had some great insight as well. But those are the majority of the sections that we wanted to talk about. One of the things we've also talked about arrests, which is in section 12, and those, as well as search and seizure, that sometimes occurs when people are arrested, which is in section 13. We've made some changes to all those, but the final recommendation will be at the next, hopefully will be at the next meeting, because we wanted to make sure that those are all correct. We noted some discrepancies between the old standard operating procedures, and that we hope to make sure that they are up to the most recent case law in New Mexico, as well as just the best standard practices. So thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? I know hopefully you've all read this before, but it's we all are concerned about the safety of our students in our community, and this is the best way to do that, is to make sure that we have a great standard operating procedure that both all of our school resource officers know, and that the public knows, and that knows what happens when, we have an irate parent who doesn't want to leave and is causing problems. And that is what happens many times, not here, but throughout the state. And everyone wants to make sure both the students are protected, as well as our visitors who come to our sports events, and to sports events, to graduations, to everything that the school runs, where we are open to the public. So does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. I can't read that far to see your name. I apologize.
Vickers.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers.
So, under 1-01,
Yes, sir.
you don't list Bosque Farms or Peralta in there. Why is that?
I believe that we just were, thanks.
For jurisdiction.
The jurisdictions, thank you very much. Yes, well, the Valencia County Sheriff's Office, we have an MOU with them because they obviously covered the entire county. We're all within there. And with the Village of Los Lunas, we have an MOU with them, but I believe both Bosque Farms and Peralta would also fall under the jurisdiction of the Valencia County Sheriff's Office. And historically, we haven't had an agreement with either Bosque Farms or Peralta. That is something, if you want us to look into it, we could do, but it would depend on how many schools. But Los Lunas, the city of Los Lunas is where we had the most, as well as all the county always not supersedes, but encompasses every community. It just general in New Mexico. State police can go investigate in any town and any county, and the sheriff's office does the same with any communities within that. So by having the Valencia County Sheriff's Office, we have jurisdiction over regardless of whether or not you're in Los Lunas, Peralta, or Bosque Farms. Sorry. So that's why we have them. But historically, we haven't had Peralta or Bosque Farms, but we can look into that if you would like.
I don't know, it might be wise to look into it. There's 2 elementary schools there,
Okay.
and there's been incidents in the last couple of years
Right.
involving law enforcement. And so, just so that there's understanding between us and their police force.
That makes perfect sense. And
Yeah.
you definitely have a better historical context than I do, but that's what I'm here to learn. So thank you.
Peralta doesn't have a police force. They're utilizing Bosque
Yeah,
Farms.
so Bosque Farms would handle both.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, if there's a question, what I would recommend is you call the sheriffs first. I mean, usually 911, it'll depend on who gets, when you do law enforcement, been both prosecutor and criminal defense attorney for over 20 years, and have had to respond to this stuff. And same with Mr. Vautier, he's been in law enforcement for, I don't even want to say, anyways, when you call 911, it depends on your dispatch center, and they'll usually call whoever's closest, but you can always make sure that ask for the sheriff's office to be there as well, and that would be one thing I'd recommend for right now, is make sure that you call the sheriff's office as well when you call Bosque Farms. But we can definitely, if we could work a similar arrangement with Bosque Farms as we have with Los Lunas. That's what those MOUs, or memorandums of understanding, are for, so that we can make sure that we have that cooperation with those law enforcement agencies.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Dr. Brasowski?
I do. So am I understanding that under Section 9, firearms and ammunition authorization, because I see some questions here in bold,
Right,
are firearms approved by commissioning LEA?
yes.
The LEA does not commission an officer, correct?
No, the commission officers, law
No,
enforcement.
they are
agents-
commissioned
Right,
officers,
right,
but
right.
we don't do the commissioning. That's a verb tense.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Who
So this-
who inventories firearms?
Well,
does-
that is going to be the SROs in our
Right.
department. So we just wanted to clarify that. That was a question that was placed in there. That's one of the reasons why I'm asking to
Okay.
continue this. So, but yes, we will make sure that everybody there, because both the training and the inventory and the care for firearms, all the firearms that are handled by our school resource officers are owned by the district. Just like we wanted to make sure that, our officers aren't bringing in their own firearms, because that can raise issues of liability. We want to prevent that, and making sure that we're working in conjunction with both Los Lunas and the Valencia County Sheriff's Office. But our Safety and Security Department is in charge of the firearms, and we're working, that's part of why we're doing this, to make sure we have the correct understanding of who's in possession and when, so.
So when I look at Section 9-08, firearms shall be stored at a safe location when not being worn, are we assuming that the SROs will have a designated safe location within their homes?
Yes, yeah, well, they're taking them home, and they're following the standard procedures that would have been taught in the law enforcement academy.
Which is what?
It depends upon, well, usually it is, the suggested procedure and protocol is that all officers should have a safe, that they put those in a place that they can't be accessed once they're not being used at that time, so.
So that's suggested, not required.
No, because it's not required, and I will double check that, but my last reading from the Law Enforcement Academy is they don't mandate every officer purchase a
So
safe.
if we don't have a requirement for the type of storage for a firearm, does that put Los Lunas schools in a not libelous, but in a position of risk with,
If somebody broke into their house and stole it, that's.
Yes,
Yeah,
or-
that has happened with other agencies throughout the state. People have stolen firearms, and so ultimately, there is a little bit of liability, but it depends, if somebody is broken into and stolen from, we can't prevent all those crimes, but I believe our insurance, hopefully we can double check with our insurance that they have that, and that is something why we want to make sure everybody knows where those are kept and stored, so.
well, I'm wondering why we aren't requiring.
Well, we can, that's why we're changing this, so if we can put that in there, and I'm noting that and putting that in there, because this process is a little more, it's very complicated.
Sure. And I appreciate the
Yeah.
detail, though.
Sure.
This is a tremendous improvement from where we were.
Okay, well, good, I'm glad. Do you have more questions, ma'am?
No, at that point,
Ms. Sanders?
So I have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Following up on what Dr. Osowski said, I would be more concerned about the liability regarding the use of that firearm outside of a school site, and the liability that might come to the district based on that. Let's just say there was a domestic and something happened, or a child that shot themselves or someone else, then what?
So you actually open up a big question. So when you say that, what do you mean? Do you mean the officer themselves using that, or somebody within their family, or are you just meaning if,
The officer takes it home,
right?
their 4-year-old,
That, unfortunately, that has happened, has also happened with officers throughout the state, but I believe your insurance, the insurance of that carries through with the standard operating procedures covers that. But yes, that, I'm not gonna say that couldn't happen, because I know from it happening in other districts and with other police forces, that is sometimes happen. Now, I can also say if that did happen and that officer then would lose, well, that officer should have that firearm taken from them if, hopefully nobody is hurt, but, if there's a charge against an officer, that implements the law enforcement, New Mexico Law Enforcement Agency then starts an investigation as well, out of Santa Fe. And so that person would be placed on leave and would then be subject to whatever discipline and ultimately possibly losing that firearm.
and then the second thing that I
Sure.
have, I'm not aware, and I can stand corrected, but I don't think that there is a policy in place currently right now within board policy that covers a lot of things that are in this handbook. Us adopting this handbook would then become policy.
Well, this is actually already a policy. We're modifying it right now. These standard operating procedures have been in place, but we have made some changes, and that's why we're going over them, and that's why we're protecting. But this standard operating procedure, a good part of it has already existed. We're making the changes to address issues like this.
So when we have or when we have a handbook like this, it should be included as part of our policy manual.
For the officers, yes. This is part of their officers for the safety and security department.
I'm talking about,
Sure.
since we're required by law to have our board policies available to the public, anytime we have a policy that exists within a manual, that should be published for the public.
I believe that and Madam Superintendent, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's actually under the NMSBA, and you can find that under that section. But if not, we could place that in there. That's the best way to make sure that it's available to the public.
Okay, so I'm not understanding. Are you saying that this procedure manual is in the NMSBA policies?
That's what I'm asking. No, it's not, but it is available. So we can make it policy. Well, it is policy. So making it available to the public would have to be through the schools, and we can do that. Hopefully, we can do that as well.
But this would be specific to Los Lunas schools, right?
Yes, this has been specific to Los Lunas schools and remains that way.
So we really wouldn't go through NMSBA, we would be,
No, you could, but there are, just so you know, that there's some overlaps with the NMSBA and this policy. That's the best way to look for it, and so you can double check. And it's always available on that website, but maybe we need to place it in a website that's run only by Los Lunas schools.
okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
I have one more question, Mr. President.
Yes.
Did we address in here, and I apologize, I'm not as well read as I should be, but I will be for your next meeting. Do we address in here if our officers work the moonlighting provision?
Moonlighting.
Superintendent Chavez, can you point me to that section? What is allowed, for instance, I've already seen that an SRO may not use a weapon in an off-duty situation, or carry our weapon, but what about our uniform or our bulletproof vest or use of vehicle or the ECDs and the baton and the handcuffs?
Et cetera.
You know, all of our equipment.
So Board President Dr. Osowski, we do have that addressed in the MOUs, but we need to add that to the SOPs. So it needs to be very clear in here for our SROs to understand.
That's correct. Thank you.
So we will add that as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, sir. I have another question. I happened to be on the board in 2011 when we implemented the school resource office, and over time, in the act of commissioning these officers with the sheriff's department, the local police department, apparently they have participated in activities off school grounds. I know there was a drug raid one time, and they participated in that. How does this policy, how is that addressed in this policy? Are they still going to be, because here again, that could subject the school district to a certain amount of liability.
So that's also in the MOUs that we've signed with them, where this policy limits the outside activity within the village or within the county. So our SROs aren't going off campuses to address crimes and be held and do law enforcement activities for either Los Lunas or the Valencia County Sheriff, except if it's in extreme circumstances. Essentially, if there's something that's a big, maybe a riot somewhere in town or a fire that they need everybody to evacuate the town and they can be standing around there. But they're not going to be handling normal traffic duties that you would expect a sheriff's deputy or a local police officer to be doing. This SOP as well as the MOUs are to minimize outside use of of the Los Lunas Schools officers, because that is to minimize liability. And also we hope that the school resources officers are there to work with the staff and the children and students at the schools more than being off and doing law enforcement work if it's not necessary. Extremely necessary, not just, hey, we're having a big fiestas or something, but something important. And that's actually, I was looking for that section because I just read that earlier today. But go ahead, and Mr. Vautier can add that.
Madam Superintendent, members of the board, James Vautier, Palms and Associates here. Just to kind of add to what was just said. So the school resource officer is not going off campus to do other law enforcement duties. Doesn't necessarily mean, and we add it into the SOP if you want to, but it doesn't necessarily mean if a law enforcement officer from the sheriff's department or the city police comes across one of your students that's off campus and shoplifting, now they reach out to the SRO, and the SRO, we'd much rather have the SRO dealing with your kids, even if they're off-site, to get them back, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so that, it's not black and white, it's really, really gray, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Well, it does make sense. That was our intention at the time. It was about protecting kids and protect those kids that are, if they are off school grounds.
Sure.
But the situation that occurred, it was up in the subdivision over here, and it wasn't the student, and so it's my understanding that our current MOU would be with the current sheriff, and the current sheriff, his term will be expiring at the end of the year. So apparently, Superintendent Chavez has a plan to after November, after the election, to meet with the incoming sheriff and set up an MOU effective the first day of 2027. So and here again, I guess that'll all be discussed in your MOU, right?
That is accurate, yes, Board President.
Okay.
Yeah, there would be, you would want questions. Yeah, because if they want your officers to go answer regular law, be available for calls for service throughout town that don't have anything to do with your kids.
Yeah, or
It might be hard.
or say an officer's in trouble and it's down the road and the SRO's close in proximity, well, how would the commissioning come into play? So we need to keep all that in our thoughts, because that could happen also.
That's actually also, that is addressed. That's what I was talking about, extreme circumstances.
Sure.
So yeah, if there's an officer from the sheriff's office who's being in the danger of being hurt or killed. And our school resource officer is the closest person. Our standard operating procedures does allow that. That's why I'm saying extreme circumstances. You know, I went a little overboard saying riots or a forest fire and you have to, or fires in town, you have to evacuate the whole town. But that's actually the most likely scenario, is if another officer from another department is in danger and they're right next to, really close to the schools, and that's the nearest person, the school resource officer could respond.
Okay, well, I understand that. In the interest of transparency, that's the only reason I'm bringing it up in public, and you know, well, do you have a question?
I do.
Go ahead.
So, just keep ensuring that this procedure manual is in compliance or it doesn't directly conflict with what current policy has. For instance, there is a moonlighting policy already in place in our NMSBA policies, which is G6150. And so we wouldn't want, and maybe just make reference to, you know, just as a suggestion, or quote it or whatever, so that it doesn't end up in conflict.
But thanks for telling me that. I'll make sure it doesn't. So, thanks. Any other questions?
No, I appreciate you coming here tonight, meeting with us and discussing a few of the highlights. We'll definitely take a better look at this policy, and as soon as you have those updates, I guess you will forward those to the superintendent, and she'll forward those to us, and so we're educated. I'm not trying to make it complicated, but it is complicated. It is, you know, this is we're only the second school district, I still believe, in the state, besides Albuquerque schools that have an SRO or similar situations. So thank you, gentlemen, and we'll look forward to the next meeting. Do we need to?
To table.
Mr.
Do we need
President?
to table? Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I move that we table item J, the presentation and approval of standard operating procedures for safety and security department, until the next meeting.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Sanders and a second by Dr. Osowski to table item J, presentation and approval of standard operating procedures for safety and security department. Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Osowski, how do you vote?
Point of order,
Yes.
Mr. President, for a point of discussion, I think I'd like to reiterate what Member Sanders had talked about, and that is, as I'm looking through here, we have several places where board policy is referenced or whatnot. I would like that explicitly spelled out in this policy. I would like to see that, just so it's a comprehensive document. So, and how do I vote? Yes.
Okay.
I vote
Ms.
yes.
Sanders, how do you vote? And I vote yes. The item is tabled by a vote of 4-0. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Jim.
much.
Thank you for your presentation. Looks like a lot of good work.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item K on the agenda, Superintendent Schools Report. Superintendent Chavez.
Your Board President Otero, I would like to welcome Mrs. Tiffany McMinn to the podium to provide our monthly construction update.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to highlight some of the improvements that have been going on in the district over the past month. So we'll start off with a little bit smaller projects, some maintenance projects and improvements. On the next slide is we have started changing out bathroom partitions at Los Lunas Elementary, which will be followed with replacements of bathroom partitions at Tomet Elementary as well. Last month, we saw Valencia High School track got a fresh coat of striping paint on there, and Valencia High School and Desert View parking lots were also restriped and marked. The Valencia High School parking lot would be primarily the athletic lot, which we did some sill crack maintenance on, and then going into the bus area, as well as Sundance Elementary. We installed the chain link fence that you see there pictured. That kind of encompasses the field, the play field, so that way parents could drive around and keep the campus more secure during the day as we allow parents to line up for pickup. Going to the next slide, this is some flooring improvements that we recently completed at Century High School. We did this over the existing floor, so we didn't do any damage to anything underneath, but this is a LVT flooring, same flooring we used at Peralta Elementary, as we're standardizing the use of materials throughout the district. And this is in the 100 building. Just the hallways at this time is what we've completed and contracted for. Going to the next slide, as anyone's been by Los Angeles Elementary, we're going around the building and getting the school a new fresh coat of paint. So we're painting the complete exterior as well as windows and door frames around that campus. And the last slide will be an update at Toma Elementary cafeteria flooring. Again, this is that standard LVT flooring we've been going around the district with, and we have completed the Toma Elementary cafeteria, and they've also worked with the purchasing department with new cafeteria tables. So it'll be a fresh for the kids to start the new school year. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Questions? Dr. Osowski?
So the flooring, thank you for your presentation. I always appreciate seeing these. So the LVT flooring, that was installed by an external contractor?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and that's vinyl, correct?
It's LVT, yes, it's like a laminate vinyl. flooring.
Laminate vinyl, yeah. So water resistance, waterproof, et cetera. Did it come with an underlayment, or did we just
No.
lay it right on?
It's
No
laid right,
underlayment?
yeah. It's adhered. It's glued adhered to the
Okay.
floor.
Oh, it is
The
glued, okay.
subbase. Mhm.
Thank you.
Mr. Vickers?
I think it's the same question, but, yeah, the Century High School hallway flooring. What is that?
We updated the flooring in there. They had old VCT tile flooring that was severely aged. There's been some patch jobs done throughout the years. Due to the age of that VCT, it's hard to get a color match. So if you go through the hallway, you kind of see some little different color variations through that. So we did an overlay of new flooring throughout the hallways.
So what is the material?
It's a LVT tile.
Okay.
So it is a similar tile that we're using in the cafeterias. We are also changing the VCT out in classrooms as we do flooring refreshes. When you go to Peralta Elementary, that school completely has LVT and carpet squares, so then that we can easily maintain it. So we have a standard of set colors we use throughout the district and that we can maintain with maintenance, our maintenance staff.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have one question. I know we have Van Parish, the project, and, obviously that's going to happen. But in the presentation earlier tonight, we were just kind of notified that they've suspended capital outlay awards for some time. Have you heard of anything? Or?
It is for 1 year, so for 2027, they're awarding specific awards that are life, health, safety systems for schools that qualify. So it's like it's not a full rebuild awards, they're doing life, health, safety system projects and pre-K awards at this time for 2027.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you. Do you have a question?
I don't,
Oh.
just thank you. Thank you for
Okay.
the presentation.
Thank you, Mrs. McMinn. I'd like to invite Ms. Tracek to the podium to provide our finance and audit reports for this month.
Okay, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. So this is for the month of June, so the state of finances reports are a little different than what you're used to seeing, slightly. For one thing, you'll see the column that says spent. Usually you're looking at spent and encumbered, and that And the reason why I include encumbrances, because a lot of these funds have payroll accounts and people on contract. So those contracted expenses are recognized right off the bat as an encumbered amount, and kind of gives you an idea of money you won't be able to spend because you will be spending it by the end of the year. So this particular one, usually, also you're receiving the reports, and then I kind of even look ahead. This one is actually as of June 30th. So this is exactly how we have ended the year. And so you can see all the funds that we do have. You can see the budget authority that we have, and the budget authority after bars in this case is the same because there aren't any bars that are going to be changing the budget authority. These are the final numbers for the amount that the OBMS allows us to spend. And then subtracting out the balance remaining is the spent less the amount of after the budget authority amount. And so, of course, we cannot spend more than the budget authority allows, or that would be an audit finding for us. So then it has the percentage remaining on all the funds. If you go down to the bottom of the report, I usually try to give you an idea of how we looked last month versus this month, and usually you see that budget report, the balance percentage remaining typically goes down, but in this case, the amount actually percentage went up, and that is because these numbers do not include any encumbrances. So we might have had it before showing an encumbrance, so you might have had a PO that was open that never was paid. It might have been an open blanket PO for some things. Let's pretend we're going to say transportation opens up a blanket PO for tires just in case they need them. They have it available, and it may not necessarily ever happen. Or it could be a purchase order that was opened and it hasn't been completed, so it will fall into the next fiscal year. The next report I have is on the revenue side of it. And this has, again, our budgeted revenue, the total amount of revenue received, so these will be final numbers, everything that did come in. It also has a column of prior year revenue, so the prior year revenue less the total revenue that came in gives you the current revenue that came in for that fiscal year, and then the balance remaining. When you have a negative amount or negative percentage, that means we actually received more revenue than was budgeted for, so which is good. So that kind of explains why sometimes you have some of these negatives in there. And then at the bottom of the report, I usually kind of give you an amount of months remaining to kind of give you what that percentage is, so you can kind of compare that percentage when you're, say, looking at the operational amount. And we are done in June, so there are 0 months remaining, and that's why you have a 0% in your operational and in your transportation. I know you guys are used to seeing a negative. You see, for expense side of it, you see a negative in transportation, but what we had to do is have operational pick up that additional expense that we have. And then, of course, you see that here, the amount that we received has to be for transportation. The amount of revenue come in is what we budgeted for. Otherwise, you could have a balance left, and then we would have to pay back the PED, any money that we leave in transportation. So we always make sure that to the penny, we spend exactly what they allow us to spend. And then I have added another report that you're not used to seeing, and this is because we're at the end of the year. This is on some of the funds where monies carry over We do have sometimes like carryover in an award that will receive, say, a federal fund, but these are actual cash amounts that come in. And so on those funds, we have the revenue that we received in the current year versus the actual expense that went out. So you can see in some funds, you can see the difference of, if we, in some cases, you can see like in the third impact aid operational, we actually spent more than we received in this year. And thus the difference is in the negative. And so the way we were able to do that is because it did have a cash balance to begin with. So that is just kind of a little bit more further information on those, so you can kind of see how the fund is changing. So that's going to kind of change your cash balances in your funds. And that is all I have for the financial reports. Are there any questions on those?
Any questions?
I have a couple. So when we go back to the expenses report and we have a balance remaining, I don't know, impact aid, no, yeah, we have 35%, $104,000. Will we be able to carry forward that as a cash balance?
Yes, the impact aids do have cash balances, and so those carry over. And those are funds that we do when we have some salaries on those funds. We do always try to make sure that we do keep a balance on those, just to make sure we're always able to have a little cushion to make sure we can always pay that employee should the amounts go down or something in the next year. We have something, and we have a little bit of time to figure out what we were going to do about those funds.
Do we have a limit as to how much of a cash balance that we keep on any of the funds, or is it fund specific?
We do not have, like operational, once you get past a certain point, you run the risk if they were to choose to take back any funds. But I am not aware of any balances that you can't go past, except cafeteria funds. You're supposed to keep a certain balance, and if you notice, actually on the cafeteria, there is a large decrease in their amount. That is one that was specifically worked on. They purchased a lot of equipment this year to kind of bring down that cash balance. When it does come, it's not a cash balance, but when it comes to the award for Title I, they have to spend 85% of the award amount for the year. And so if they do not spend the 85%, then they can apply for a waiver. But then I believe, I'm not sure, I think after a waiver, you say we did this year, we didn't spend up to the 85%, and that's a pretend because we really did. They could apply for a waiver. They would not be able to apply for a waiver the next year, and then I'm not sure how many years. It might be 3 years. I'm not exactly sure.
So when we get to the end of all of that, and we have our cushion, and we're sure that the year's expenses are cleared, and it's a cash balance, is that something that eventually goes through, we see it as a bar, and then it ends up in our cash?
It will end up in our cash. So what happens is when we're doing the budget, we anticipate how much, just like operational. If you remember when I did the budget for the operational, there was a portion where we put for cash. We're guessing how much cash is going to be left at the end. Many of these funds, we do the same thing, and impact aid would be one of those funds. So we show the estimate, because we don't even know at the time we're doing it. Say we're doing it March and April, we don't know. There could be money, we might receive money in June. We're not sure, so we estimate on many of these funds how much revenue by June 30th is going to come in, and we also estimate how much expense is going to go out. And so those, then, let's say we go through it, and it looks like we're going to leave $30,000 based on the difference between the revenue and expense, then that $30,000 goes into a carryover prior year revenue into the next year's budget. Okay. So they're actually automatic calculations now in the OBMS on things that we leave will automatically, on some funds, All funds are different, so.
Right,
So that is a particular fund that will, so we are estimating. But then what happens is, that's our estimate for cash. When our audit is completed, the auditors will go through and actually show the balances of our true balances for cash. I mean, there could be accruals in there, they're not exact, they're not the exact number in the cash, not on a cash basis for like operational. We're gonna have to withhold like the payroll taxes that weren't paid, that will get reduced from the actual cash number. Stuff like that happens, but for the most part, it's our cash balance. And then, we will then bring those bars, so you'll notice like 1 month, we're gonna have all kinds of cash bars, and that's once the audit is done. And so sometimes we do them over two months, you know. We do some of them and then we might put some in later. But it's after the audit is completed totally, then our cash numbers are released. So this year was kind of strange because our audit was done so late. And then I actually believe we were able to do some of them, get them started prior to it actually ever being completed.
Thank you very much. On a side note, I will tell you that at the leadership retreat, both gubernatorial candidates for this year's election spoke emphatically and passionately about their proposed revision for the funding algorithm for transportation. So I thought that I would bring you back some happy news for a change.
I did. That was very happy. This year, actually, the initial where we had the bar where they added to our transportation. So, so that is going to help operational. So yes, that was a really very happy surprise to get that amount.
I'm done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Vickers, have anything?
No.
Ms. Sanders, do you have anything?
I don't, just thank you for your work on this, and it's, what, $160 million budget, and with everything that you have to put together and keeping it as a budget and then seeing it in the end, it's not going to be exact, but thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, next I'd like to go over our audit committee information. I don't have any presentation, so. Okay, so since the last time I reported on audit committee, we actually had 2 meetings. The first meeting was on July 6th, and in that meeting, our new auditor, Bobby Cordova from Cordova CPAs, he joined in, and he kind of gave the audit committee kind of an idea of, you know, what a regular audit encompasses. So our committee can kind of have a feel for, like, if you're looking at some of these recommendations that happen, you know, what happens in the audit? What kind of things are they asking for? What amount? Are they just touching a tip of things, or are they kind of going into in-depth? So that was kind of something we kind of went over. What we call a PVC list is a listing of what the auditor asks us for. And then as the years go, as the audit goes on, more things will be added to it. So we will update our audit committee on anything that gets added to it. He also mentioned how year 1 with an auditor is usually the most difficult because they're getting to know us, we're getting to know them, so there is quite a few more additional things that are done on the first year. And then at the second year, then they just ask what has changed in those types of things, and so it kind of makes year 1 a little bit more time consuming. He had also mentioned that he was reaching out to Mr. Beck at the Officer of the State Auditors about the normal audit that we had and the special audit, kind of going over, since the regular audit did not have any findings and the special audit did. And trying to get a feel for, on the recommendations that JAG had made, did we have any leeway, or were they something that had to be done? And so he was still looking into some of those things. He also let us know that on these recommendations that were done, there is not a timeline, initially the rush that I thought we had to have. As long as we are working on it, then it wasn't a specific timeline, so. So after that, we did bring up again to discuss the 3 JAG recommendations, the audit findings that were basically recommendations, which were the first one was the internal audit function not established, the electronic and stamped signatures, and third, the strengthening of the finance and audit committees. I'm going to not go into detail on that because we did decide that Dr. Osowski was going to present that information to you, which were some of the suggestions that we that we made as a committee, and kind of go over the pros and cons of all the different things that we discussed on the different 3. And then, of course, it's going to be up to the board to decide how the business office will proceed. So, then lastly, we discussed that we decided we wanted to talk about all of the special audit findings, but then we also said what we would do, excluding the 3 that we had discussed in depth already. We were going to take them in numerical order. And so we were talked to kind of be prepared for the next meeting, if we were going to have time, that we would go over the first one, which was legal. And so then that was it on that meeting. The next meeting was held on July 14th. We started off that meeting by going over the notes that we took about the July 6th meeting, just to make sure we didn't miss anything or took anything incorrect. The review went fine. And then we had discussed one of our suggestions, if the board was to decide that we had a form that we had looked at, letting whoever signs checks a form that we thought might be beneficial. After that, our auditor, Bobby Cordova, he had joined in, and we started our regular audit entrance meeting. And so he went over that meeting, and at this point, anything for the regular audit is confidential at this time. And just to let you know that audit is due November 15th. So after our audit entrance meeting, we then started with our number 1 special audit finding, which was legal. However, that entrance meeting took most of our time. And so we just started with the legal, and basically the only thing we probably talked about the most was the fact that, this audit finding started with the legal firm of Cuddy having an invoice without our purchase order. And then what we did talk about was, how Cuddy has been a vendor of ours for years. And this year, what happened was they missed in the RFP, they missed the mandatory deadline. And so they did not make this RFP. And what happened with that was they had sent the information through FedEx, and it was guaranteed to be there at a certain time. And unfortunately, FedEx guarantee did not happen on time. And so because of that, because it was mandatory, we did not have them win to be able to be a vendor from that RFP. That's about the extent of where we got on legal, so to be continued on the next one. It just happened to be that meeting, we did have the entrance So what happened was we had to end because Finance Committee started. So the next meeting we will be starting again with legal, and we won't have any of the other things that we have to do. So hopefully we will be able to even go beyond the first one. So next report, I'm sure I'll be able to report on that, so.
Mr. President, I want to follow up with that.
Sure.
Because we are going through the findings that were recommended in the special audit, the audit committee has taken a great amount of time and diligence in parsing out possibilities so pros and cons of different suggestions on how to possibly address those particular findings. And what I would like to do, this agenda on this meeting looked fairly long, is on the next agenda. I would like to be able to provide some of those summaries and some suggestions from the audit committee for board consideration. So it probably would need to be a 2-meeting thing, one, so that you could see where we're at with the recommendations or the suggestions. Allow board members to have time to think and parse that over, and then come back with a possible action for the end of August. But there's been great time and diligence, lots of very deep and heartfelt communication and conversations. And as well, as Mrs. Tracek pointed out, we've been checking in with the auditor about his satisfaction with our intent to address these. We had a perception that we maybe needed to address 3 of the findings very quickly because the end of the fiscal year was occurring. And we were assured that as long as we were making good progress and staying diligent to the task, that this would not be a double jeopardy kind of thing where we got hit with the special audit and then we get hit again with our next annual audit, that we're not making progress. He was satisfied that with us moving to a little bit of a different format where we're taking good meeting notes and we're reviewing those meeting notes, and we are showing progress on the findings, that he would be satisfied that we are meeting the intent of those findings. And of course, the final suggestions will be board approval, one way or another. But I'd like to definitely add those 2 to the agendas for the next 2 meetings for August. So one would be just a presentation, and then the next would be possible action.
Okay. Superintendent, we can add that to the next 2 agendas. We'll see if we can get this done. I know it's taken you some time, and you've had to reschedule some meetings and add some more meetings, but we really need to move on some of this stuff. But I'm glad that you're giving a lot of thought, and we're not just making decisions hastily. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Tracek.
Thank you.
So I will move into my section of the report specifically. So we have some new staff members that I would like to introduce. We have our new Peralta Elementary Principal, John J.J. Sandoval. Mr. Sandoval started his new position this summer. Welcome, Mr. Sandoval. We also have some new head coaches that I would like to introduce. We have our new Los Lunas High School boys basketball coach, Lamar Marinia. We also have Mr. Rustin Porter, who is our Valencia High School baseball coach. He just finished his first season at Valencia High School. And we did have Ms. Blake Sable here, who is our new Tigerettes head coach. She did have to leave due to a prior commitment, so she was here as well. Next month, we will introduce more of our new coaches that were not able to attend because they're with our student athletes. So we welcome our new team members, and we wish you a successful school year and successful seasons. Thank you for taking care of our kids.
Yes. Thank you. Welcome.
On Saturday, July 18th, our district held our first back-to-school extravaganza. All our school sites and departments were represented. It was a great event for our community. We had numerous student athletes complete their physical exams at the event. Thank you to all our employees who made this event possible. We look forward to more community events throughout this coming school year. Next week, we will hold professional development days for all staff. We will also hold our new employee orientations. We look forward to welcoming our staff to the 2026-2027 school year. Our annual convocation for all district staff members is on Friday, July 31st. We look forward to seeing all our staff and our new staff t-shirts at LLHS on this day. Registration for new and returning students is ongoing. We would like to remind our students and parents that there is no fee for parking permits at our high schools. Open houses for our elementary schools are scheduled for Monday, August 3rd, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. We will also hold a ribbon cutting ceremony for Peralta Elementary on August 3rd at 5 o'clock. Los Lunas High School and Valencia High School open houses are scheduled for Wednesday, August 12th, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Open houses for our middle schools are scheduled for Thursday, August 13th, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. And Century High School and Los Lunas Family School will host their open house on Wednesday, August 19th, from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. Jumpstart Day for 7th grade and 9th grade students is on Monday, August 3rd. The first day of school for 1st through 12th grade students is on Tuesday, August 4th. Our first day of school for our pre-K and kindergarten students is on Thursday, August 6th. We continue to recruit and hire for vacant positions in our district. Our school sites, departments, and our personnel department are working diligently each day to fill all vacant positions. And the number is going down week by week, so we are really excited with our ability to fill those positions. Thank you to our personnel department and all team members who are working diligently behind the scenes. I would like to thank our staff for their continuous hard work and dedication. It was a very busy summer for our team. Despite what many people believe, it is not quiet and peaceful in the summer. We are very, very busy getting ready for the new school year. We look forward to seeing our staff, students, and community return for the start of the school year. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you. Due to the length of the next two items, board members and Superintendent Chavez, I was wondering if it would be within my authority to move up item 09, approval of memorandum of understanding between Opioid Remediation Collaboration, a New Mexico Public Health Collaborative, and Los Lunas Schools. Do we have an agreement to go ahead and move that up? Can we do that?
That we would take a motion to amend your agenda,
Okay, well,
that they can make a motion to do that.
okay. All right, but this time I'd ask for a motion to amend our agenda, amend our
Mr.
items
President,
on the agenda, yes.
I move to amend the agenda to move item O, Finance Committee items number 9, approval of memorandum of understanding, MOU, between Opioid Remediation Collaboration, New Mexico Public Health Collaborative, and Los Lunas Schools to our immediate focus. So at this time, moving it in front of item L, which is discussion and approval regarding adopted NMSBA policy manual, Los Lunas Schools, board policies, and future policy development.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Osowski. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Ms. Sanders. Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
No, Dr. Osowski, how do you vote?
Yes?
Ms. Sanders, how do you vote? And I vote yes. All right. Mr. Montoya, are you presenting?
Ms. Gonzalez, actually.
Okay.
So Board President Otero. Board President Otero, we have some guests from the Opioid Remediation Collaborative of New Mexico. So we have Nancy Jo Gonzalez here from the Village of Los Lunas. We have Shauna Hartley as part of the collaboration and another special guest.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you, President Otero, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. So yes, my name is Nancy Gonzalez. I do work for the Village of Los Lunas, but tonight I'm here in my capacity as a board member for the Opioid Remediation Collaborative New Mexico. I'm also here with our executive, or the executive director of ORC-NM, which I'll shorten that to ORC-NM for the rest of the night, Shauna Hartley, and our Youth Advisory Council representative, Josiah Vallejos. He represents on our Youth Advisory Council for the County of Valencia. So we're just going to try and keep this brief and really open this up for questions from you all. I think it's more important that we're here to address any concerns you might have and really kind of clarify any issues that you might foresee with this. So we'll get to it on our presentation, and thank you again for giving this opportunity to present tonight.
Sure.
And Ms. Shauna Hartley will start us off. Let's see, if we can go to the next slide, that'd be, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President and board members. My name is Shauna Hartley, and I'm the Executive Director of the Opioid Remediation Collaborative of New Mexico. We have been in place since actually 2023, and I've been on this project since inception. The Opioid Remediation Collaborative of New Mexico is a rural county partnership that helps our communities use their opiate settlement dollars effectively, transparently, with evidence-based treatment, prevention, and recovery opportunities. The opiate settlement funds are payments from the lawsuits against the opiate manufacturer distributors for the role of the opiate crisis across the world. One of our So Valencia County is one of my counties. We have 9 counties and 1 entity, which is the Village of Los Lunas. Valencia County was one of my original 7 communities, and the Village of Los Lunas actually joined in December. But we've actually always treated the entire county with the village since inception. So we are basically a group of rural counties that are using these dollars in an effective way to improve both prevention and treatment. And just a kind of a brief update with our numbers here in New Mexico. I don't know if you guys know this, but New Mexico has actually moved up to the 4th highest overdose rate in the nation. So being able to talk about this and utilize these dollars in an effective way is probably the most important time since I've been on this project. So I just want to put that out there. Can you change the next slide? So part of, so that's the next. Okay. So can you go to the next slide? That's okay. So part of what the ORC has been trying to do since we started is prevention. And, you know, it's really important to, of course, identify different kinds of treatment opportunities for people and enhance that for communities. But when we're doing treatment, we're really looking at the other side of that person when they've already been using drugs or alcohol. Prevention, you know, I'm preaching to the choir here with youth. It's really, really important that we are talking about these issues when people are young, so that we can really let them know, you know, what the harms are around using drugs or alcohol. This project focuses on opiates because of the opiate epidemic, but you know, I've been a social worker here in New Mexico for actually 30 years, been practicing in various ways, was a hospital administrator at Turquoise Lodge for over a decade, and the majority of the people that we service are definitely not just using one drug. It's called cross addiction, so our project is really versed to be able to handle all of that. So one of our strategic goals for our project is to basically provide prevention for youth and families. And I'm not sure if you guys saw the article in the newspaper actually in April. Wallet Hub and the CDC identified that New Mexico had one of the largest drug problems in the whole country. And part of that was youth were using, but also youth tend to live in homes where people use drugs and alcohol. So when we started thinking about prevention forums for our youth council, which Josiah is going to talk about that piece of it, one of the things that we didn't want to do is, you know, start up a new prevention event and have families who are already, you know, juggling multiple roles and responsibilities have to go to another option or another event. And so we identified actually sporting events, because in all of our rural counties, whether it's Valencia, which is my largest county, or my smallest, which is Catron, that is one thing that families do enjoy, and they go out and they go to sporting events. So we identified sporting events as a potential service platform for our Youth Advisory Council. Now, what the ORC is proposing, and we're already doing this in 2 other counties, and we've had quite a bit of success with that, is the ORC is wanting to pay for
the entire county's sporting events for their youth and their family, with the intention that the Youth Advisory Council, which Josiah will talk about here in a minute, would be able to conduct prevention opportunities. And that would be definitely something that we would talk about with the school. It wouldn't be something that we would just go out and do. So the ORC has developed a creative, low-barrier approach to bringing prevention directly to our communities, and we want to do it in this type of forum. Our Youth Advisory Board are young people. We do have representation from 4 out of our 9 counties. That are really deeply committed to helping people, and they really want to talk about prevention, and they're very respectful, and they're ready to do this. When youth are identified to have some type of service opportunity, they have to have a platform to do that. So we are really looking at the schools to be our partners in this process. So what we're proposing is the ORC pay for the entry for youth and their families that go to the game with them, and then we would have an opportunity to actually provide some prevention materials, and that can be through a booth, it could be through maybe walking around when there's a lull time in the game. You know, we're not going to be pushy, we want people to get our information, and so that's what we're proposing. So I'm going to turn it over to Josiah, who now is going to talk about our Youth Advisory Council, what we've been doing, and then he's also with a collection of our Youth Advisory Council, have developed some really great prevention opportunity materials, and it's all based on data.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having us here today. And a lot of the things that the Youth Council does is that we oversees some of the things that happen in the ORC, so that way we have proper representation for youth specifically to the whole organization itself. And in addition to that, whenever we first started, we made sure we built a mission and a goal and a vision, and we ensured that those aligned with the original ORC and our missions and goals, but made it more youth-oriented for those benefits of the youth. We also have youth leadership training, and we partnered with NMSU and the Youth Move in order to have better advocacy throughout the Youth Advisory Council. And then with our community engagement, we always ensure we try to have the best possible youth outcome at events that we do attend, and that's also why we are seeking to fund these sporting events, so that way we are able to spread awareness of these already known substances, so that way we can make an attempt to lower these rates and hopefully improve the quality of lives of these youth, so that way they don't get addicted to these different kind of substances. And with that, at these sporting events, we plan to hand out some of these cards right here, and these just tell them a little bit about who the ORCNM is and YAC. And on there, we have stuff about fentanyl use and alcohol use. In addition to that, on the separate card, we have information about vaping and cannabis, and we made sure to articulate those for the youth and adults, so that way it's understandable and more comprehensible for people of all ages. And the Youth Council are the ones who built these. And we will continue to work hard for the youth in order to make sure that the youth have the best prevention opportunities available, so that way we'll be able to prevent them from getting onto any substances. Thank you.
And then we'll go to our last slide, and I'll make this as brief as possible, and really, like I said, allow for questions. I think that's the most important part here. So you might be asking the same way I was to myself is, okay, what is the link between paying for admission to sporting events and opioid, alcohol, even vaping prevention? Like, what is the link? Is this an approved use? So the short answer is yes, it's a preventative factor. Community engagement is a CDC-recognized preventive factor. Getting families out, it's giving them that third space, a healthy option, if you will, other than what else you could be doing on a Friday or Saturday night, or whatever nights of the week the games are. I'm not sure, I haven't been to one in a little while, but I might go now. So that alone, so even just paying for the events and access is a preventative factor. So handing out the information, having the youth council there, getting the information out, that is part of it. But the act of just getting more folks to attend the games is in and of itself prevention. Youth who feel supported by their community, they're less likely to use substances. I believe it's Socorro or Guadalupe County who the players said, you know what, we feel really supported by our community. We love, there's more people in the stands. We want to play a little bit better, so their sports teams are even doing better. Who doesn't like that? And they're more, I think, just engaged in wanting to do a good job and looking in the stands and seeing people that they know from their community, family, who maybe otherwise wouldn't have gone to that game. Free admission, right now, it puts every game they would have paid to go to, $5, $10 back in their pockets. And right now, I will be honest, I could use that money back in my pocket for everyday things. Things are very expensive nowadays. If we can help our community take what they would have paid to go to a game or multiple games and use that for groceries, for gas, for something else, it helps our community. It's a direct benefit to our community, which thereby, low income, financial stress, those are things that place stress on families and students and youth that lead to substance, alcohol, vaping abuse. So yes, there are these resources we want to get out, but there's this whole other backside of this that is a direct prevention. So I understand that there may be some apprehension on even discussing opioids or drugs or alcohol at games. I understand that. I am not blind to talking about like the kind of the elephant in the room. We're bringing up the topic of drugs and these kind of dark problems out in the open. It needs to be done, but also by doing that and engaging our community better, we're taking that next step of prevention. Prevention is the #1 underfunded and underutilized program of this money, but it's shown to have the possible best direct impact. If we could prevent folks or students or youth from ever using, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't we not be able to have to pay for treatment in the long run? So let's approach this twofold, treatment and prevention. Lastly, this has been done before. It's been done in Iceland. I know we're not Iceland. We are very far from it. But I can guarantee that the issues they're facing, whether it's Iceland, New Mexico, any other country, we're facing them here too. Drug use, it is rampant globally. They waived fees for all of their sporting events for the community. This was over the course of 15 years, right? So I'm not saying that we're gonna do this for 1 year and all of a sudden we're gonna have these drastic rates, but they took their youth drunkenness from 29% to 4%. It was over the course of many years, but it is proven to work. Now, I'm not saying, causation, correlation, this is the one thing that fixed it, but it was something that they did that was shown to really help. And in the studies show, people really felt engaged. They felt more involved in their community. So I'll stand for any questions. I know Shauna and Josiah will too, but I do think this is an opportunity that we have to do something positive with this money. It's unfortunate that this settlement ever had to happen to begin with, but I think we can start making an impact on the community in a positive way. So, like I said, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, I'm the one that listed this for discussion. I really wanted to, I had heard something about this some time back, and I really felt like it's something that we needed to discuss and talk about. How does this work? Is it children coming to the gate, or does it have to be with an adult, or is the gate open for everybody, or how does this work? Because it's going to involve ticket takers and what have you.
Great question, President Otero. So yes, it is, and we've kind of talked about this. We've had a couple meetings with the superintendent and some of the finance committee. So it would outright be, a payment. We would fund the schools to pay. GoFan, is that the name of the platform? So we would pay that, up for, or we'd be invoiced for it, pay for that. You all would be able to still track folks going in and out of the games with GoFan. That way we can see the numbers of how many people are going in or out. So they would go online, kind of buy their ticket with a code. We're still kind of working out the logistics, but they would type in, sometimes you buy a discount code, type in, I don't know, Los Lunas. They wouldn't pay for anything. When they get to the gate, they'd show their code and they'd scan it and they'd be able to go in. That's just for us to track how many people are going in or out, and then for safety reasons, of course, to know how many people are attending games. This would be open to anyone attending the games. This is visitors as well, anyone in the county, even folks coming, from Bernalillo County, Socorro County, Belen, but anyone could come to the games. So it is open to anyone. So the idea is to allow anyone into the games for free, but they would have to kind of still buy their ticket on the app.
Into any event at any school?
Any ticketed event at any of Los Lunas Public Schools, right now it is limited to all the events that you have for sports, but we are already looking at, if we are to enter into this MOU for next year, any drama events, plays, anything you charge admission for, really anything that families would have to pay to get into. But any ticketed events, I believe that's football, basketball, middle school, volleyball. I don't know all of the events that you all charge for, but that would be covered and really ironed out once we, if we were to finalize this MOU.
So if I could just add, what we would ask of the school is that you would query your last 3 years of sporting events, the dollars that you have actually received, and then we would do the average of that. So it would be a formal agreement through an MOU. We would take the average of your last 3 years' sporting events, and the ORC would pay the school that amount. And then you guys would work out all of the logistics of how people would get in, so on and so forth. We would then have our prevention materials, which we already have, been working on this for about a year now. We would meet with the respective individuals that we need for approval. And then the school would actually give us guidance on how we would do this. So we've been working for the last year with our Youth Advisory Council and with schools to get this agreement in place. This would be the first school year, the one coming, where we would be doing our prevention outreach. And that prevention outreach could look in a way that the school would feel that they would like that to be. I think different schools are going to have different ideas about that.
A little bit about your background, ORC. I realize we're looking at prevention, and I looked it up, and there's several criteria, but it's the opiate settlement that's funding this and driving this. And from what I've read and what I'm hearing is, and the state auditor apparently made an issue about it the other day, but that there was $110 million for opiate treatment and prevention and all this kind of stuff, and only $15 million has been, people have only requested $15 million, and so I'm concerned about the prevention, but I'm also concerned about the treatment, because, this is how we got here, is people and kids, and through whatever reason, have got into opiates and moved on to other things, heroin and now fentanyl. And what is the background? Are you doing? And I also understand that the treatment centers or treatment is scarce, and it's that's the reason why the problem's so bad, is the lack of treatment. And after a while, some of these people are just pretty much lost, and they're wandering around even their courtyard here. But so what are you all doing as far as treatment?
So when I first started this project, I did both a needs assessment with your stakeholders in this county in addition to the community. So I basically gathered information as to what each county, so Valencia is one of my 9.
Okay.
So there was information that was extracted from leaders in your communities in addition to your community. There's national guidelines that actually the federal government tells us what we can use this money for. Mm-hmm. So it's not an open-ended ask.
Sure.
The money falls into prevention and also treatment. The Opiate Remediation Collaborative collectively with all 9 counties has $9 million. So the state received money, over $800 million for the opiate settlement here in New Mexico, but those dollars went to legal fees, it went in different directions. The state received 55% and the counties received 45%. So my collaboration that I oversee, we have approximately $9.7 million with the new 3 entities coming on board. These dollars are allocated over 8 to 18 years. So it's not that every county is receiving these dollars. It is put on a cadence because that was strategically done so that the opiate settlement dollars did not bankrupt the pharmaceutical companies. So these dollar allocations for every single county is different. We have a strategic plan. I would love to share it with you. If you would like me to come back and do a full presentation of everything that we're doing for our collaboration in addition to your county, I would love to do that. But I can share my strategic plan, and I can also do a presentation and give you an overview of the program. When people ask me about treatment in New Mexico, I can tell you from an individual that oversaw the largest medical detox program in the state of New Mexico for a decade, and I did that through the pandemic. I watched this epidemic happen because I started in 2013 and I left in 2022. So in New Mexico, what we saw, because we service the entire state, that's our data. We have a medical detox program, a social rehab program, and an outpatient program. And you're right, addiction in New Mexico is severe. And as I stated earlier, we have the 4th highest overdose rate in the whole country per capita per person. In New Mexico, as everybody else's overdoses have gone down, ours went up 21% in the last year. So, this is a big problem. Now, what I'll tell you from a treatment standpoint is a lot of people feel that if there was just a treatment center, people would go to it. But any of us that know this disease as well as I do know that people have a choice in that. People are very uncertain. Sometimes they want to get better. Nobody wants to be addicted to anything. I've never met someone that's addicted to a drug or alcohol and said, you know, I'm really happy to be an addict today. It's a horrible, painful disease, and it's not easy for people to make a commitment to change their life. I would say that we do have resources in New Mexico, but what we don't have is good navigators to really assist that person who is struggling to get where they need to go. And an example of that is someone can call a treatment center and say, I want to come in, and then they don't show up, or they don't feel like they want to go, or they don't want to do it. What we need in New Mexico are really people who are assisting that person in making probably the biggest decision of their life. So we do have resources. We are talking about treatment. In my collaboration, I have 2 addiction medicine physicians that are part of my project that have been doing this work for a very long time. I'm hoping to connect with your new rural hospital that you guys are going to be standing up here pretty soon, because an ER environment is probably the best place to start talking to somebody that might have an addiction, or do an induction with medication-assisted treatment for medical withdrawal. So we have reached out to people here in your community, and I think that, you know, in the next couple of years, you're going to start to see a lot of really good enriched systems to make this work. So either be local or a better conduit to programs that have that.
Okay. Well, I just want to bring that awareness, you know, to the community that, you know, I've been around, I saw what happened with the cigarette settlement, you know.
Absolutely.
The tobacco companies paid out a whole bunch of money, and they paid it out to the states, and they spend it, and a lot of it in good ways, but some of it not so good. But, you know, now more people are smoking cigarettes than ever before, and they're paying over $10 a pack. And the opiates, you know, it's an issue, like you say. It's once they're hooked. I did attend way back when I attended at the National School Board Conference. They had a class on that, and what I was shocked about, I attended it because I thought it was going to have a lot about kids, but there was a lot of adults there. There was a lot of school board people. There was a lot of administrators, and a lot of people are getting hooked. You know, when they get injury, and they're giving opiates, and they showed us all these graphs on how people get hooked, and so, I mean, even people are not unsuspecting, you know, but I just want to make that, you know, I support the prevention, but I don't think that we should forget how we got here. And,
We
yeah.
definitely haven't, and I can tell you, I've just finished, I'm writing my strategic plan for this year. 2024, we spent close to $890,000 as a collaborative, and this year we spent 1.7. And I have all of that broken out. So again, you know, I would love to come and present that to you. I can send you my strategic plan. But I just want to say one thing, and I'm going to say this with a lot of love, is that if we as communities don't start acknowledging that this is true and talk about it, nothing's going to change. And I will tell you, in every single county I represent, whether it be Valencia County or the smallest county, which is Catron, if we continue to say this isn't happening here, right?
Yeah.
Then we're going to continue to tell children they don't see what they see. And right now, this is a crisis in New Mexico. This is a crisis in New Mexico. And I would say that schools have probably, or do, have the biggest influence on children and families. And if we start to take a stance around this disease and this issue, and we're not going to look the other way and pretend like it's not happening, I can tell you that we start to walk this path with truth and things start to change. So we can have treatment centers, we can have all this stuff, but we as a community, if we don't start really embracing that this is happening and we need to do something about it, we as leaders doing that, then we're not role modeling what we want our kids to do.
Sure. Well, I'll go ahead and, any other comments? Ms. Centers?
I think it would be great if you came back and shared some of the things, because I think the more you share with us, the more we can think of ways that we can incorporate what you're trying to do with our captive audience on a daily basis, right? One of the things we talked about in Finance Committee was how this might integrate into the health curriculum that all ninth graders have to take. And so my question to you is there additional funding that might help to provide assistance there if we got to that point? Because what I hear you saying is this is maybe a decades-long initiative, and this will be the first step in that.
Absolutely. So I have met with your superintendent, who's wonderful, by the way, and we are working on a plan for that. So myself and two other independently licensed social workers who have been doing this work as long as I have are ready to work with your ancillary service team and really talk through what are the best practice ways to work with elementary school kids, because there is. Middle school kids, high school kids, looking at having the DARE program training so that it's local, so that your SROs are able to actually implement something from a different place. So this could be something that we do in a very strategic way. You know, we look at what is our first year going to look like? What is our second year going to look like? You know, what should year 5 look like? Out of all the counties that I represent for this project, you are the fastest growing and the largest. And I can't tell you how important that is, because if we don't do both, treatment and prevention at the same time simultaneously, and doing it in a way that really, really makes sense and is thoughtful, then we don't want to misuse these dollars. And I do want to help our rural counties. My career started here in this county in 1996. I was a CYFD social worker working in this community, and then I worked at Valencia Counseling Services for 15 years. And so my investment and my team's investment in this county is big. And we recognize that we really need to do this in a thoughtful way.
And then the last thing that I want to say, and I did this as the superintendent in the school district, and I'm going to do it as a board member now. I want to recognize Nancy Joe and the fact that she was my little 7th, 8th grader, and now she's an advocate in our community. And I can't think of anybody better that can help to steer this. She knows when to push the gas pedal and when to take off, and so I just want to say I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's a testament to the community I was raised in, the education I was given, and the tools and resources, got me to where I'm at now. So thank you, and it's a pleasure to be presenting before you all tonight. And I will also add, I'm going to plug Susan here. She's the only superintendent to have actually met with the opioid remediation collaborative. So this is the only school board to engage with these services. So I think there's a huge opportunity here for this to be a partnership to really just involve the youth. And so yeah, so I couldn't see gas pedal off. Gas pedal off. Okay, I'm done.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Akers, go ahead.
It's great. I don't know how anybody could say no to you guys. Thank you.
So I ran some numbers, 9.7 million between the 9 counties and the village. Is that for 1 year? Is that for 3 years? Is that for 5 years? What is that for?
The dollar amounts come in at a cadence, so every county has a different allotment. And it doesn't, so the dollars that every county got are based on the overdose rates in your county. Okay? And the way that our collaboration works is all the money goes into one bucket, and every county has an opportunity to use it. I have regional strategies that all of the counties benefit from, and an example of that I'll give you is I have 3 apps that are free to your county today. One of them is for people who are in recovery or seeking that, for teens, and also for people that take care of people that have a substance use issue. It has a library, it has information, it has screeners, it has a peer specialist that's offered to that person 24/7. They can access NA and AA meetings. So we have regional costs that all the counties are utilizing. Then each county manager, in this case, Nancy Joe is the village's representative. We have Jonathan Aragon for Valencia. They can request individual requests. And what a lot of people say to me is, well, Valencia put in this much money, then, we deserve that piece of it. Our collaboration is really that we're trying to create a regional approach. So those dollars are used in the way that our 9 entities see fit. And over time, what I see is that it's already happening. So an example of that would be that, for instance, in Hidalgo County, which is 4.5 hours away from here, I drive it quite often, they have a social rehab program. If they stand up an inpatient service quickly, then what we would be working on, and say Valencia County doesn't have one, we would actually be working on transportation so that this county would have priority with that service in that community. So we're looking at it as, we're gonna stand up all of these services that people need, but it might not necessarily be geographically in that county.
I appreciate that. I think my concern comes from the idea that all of this sounds perfect. And as Mr. Vickers said, I don't know how you couldn't. However, the thing I worry about is we start something, and then because we've allocated 9.7 million, you guys have allocated 9.7, then it stops.
The dollars
So
are.
I'm looking for an answer for sustainability and an estimated time for sustainability.
So actually the opiate settlement lawsuits are still active. They haven't even finished. And so I anticipate that there's going to be more money over time, but right now, we don't have 9.7 in our bucket because we've been using those dollars. And Valencia County, whether it be the county or the village, they're not going to we're not going to receive their total amount that they get for every year because there's a cadence of their dollars being spent out. So the pharmaceutical companies were very clear that if they ask for, let's say, 1.7 every single year, that potentially could bankrupt that distribution system, right? And so some years or some quarters, we get a quarter of what Valencia gets, and then 6 months later, we get something else. So it's strategic that we don't get these monies all the time. But I can tell you that the dollars, and you know, you can look this up for New Mexico, they're all different with each state. These dollars are for the next 8 to 18 years. The 8 to 18 years. So at minimum, we could commit to doing this for at least the next 5.
And that would be out of the 9.7 plus
Correct.
whatever we anticipate could be happening for future settlements.
Right.
That was my question. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
It's time for motion.
Mr. President,
Yes, Dr. Osowski.
I move that we approve, let me get to the wording here so that we don't have to redo it again. Sorry. I move that we approve the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, between Opioid Remediation Collaboration and New Mexico Public Health Collaborative and the Los Lunas Schools.
We have a motion by Dr. Osowski to approve item 09, approval of memorandum of understanding between Opiate Remediation Collaboration and New Mexico Public Health Collaborative and Los Lunas Schools. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second by Ms. Sanders. Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Sanders, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Osowski, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. It's passed by a vote 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
They're going to need some fanware.
Okay, we're back on track with item 11, discussion and approval regarding adopted NMSBA policy manual, Los Lunas Schools board policies, and future policy development.
So, Board President, Mr. Otero, I'm not sure how we wanted to start this discussion. I know that we are looking at our policies every single day in our school district, and we are looking at updated policies, and I am asking for this discussion so that we are able to review our current policies and decide what next steps we need to make, because there are some updates that we need to provide to our current policies that have not yet occurred. Or do we need to change directions with future policy development?
Okay. All right, board members, we've talked about this sometime back in a meeting, whether we were going to stick with the policy manuals or what we were going to do. Ms. Sanders, what
Well,
comments do you have?
you know me, I'll just say it like it is. I don't believe that the NMSBA policies are meeting our needs at this point. I think that there's a couple of options that are available. One is that we go back to the policies that existed for Los Lunas schools prior to November of 2023, and start there. Whatever the board decides, the fact is that we've got to review that's one of our major tasks as a board member, is that we review our policy and that we keep it up to date. The other option that I'm going to propose to you, and then I will recuse myself from any other discussion and or vote, is that I am a member, a partner of a company that has created a policy manual for school districts. And it's up and live for one particular school district on our website. And if the board were so inclined to do such a thing, our company would donate our policy service and manual to the Los Lunas schools for as long as I am a board member.
Mr. President, I don't
Yes.
think we can make a decision on this tonight. I think we need to have a workshop or incorporate it into our retreat to really get a handle on exactly what we're going to do.
Mr. President, I would like to concur with Mr. Vickers. First of all, I think it's very generous of what Mrs. Sanders and her company have offered for us, because this has been expensive, and it's been less than satisfactory for, I think, all stakeholders throughout our district. I worry that we would possibly enter in some legal issues. So in addition to an in-depth discussion, I would definitely like to have our legal come in and advise us about what next steps could be. I worry about an anti-donation clause. I worry about, way too many things after attending a retreat this weekend, because this was an informal conversation with many of the attendees from across the state, was the weaknesses in the NMSBA policy. So it's not just us feeling it, it's many, many districts are feeling it. And one that was sidestepped in informal conversations by other persons that could have been making some critical decisions or hearing critical, rather constructive feedback. So I would definitely welcome the opportunity to have these conversations and definitely have legal in front of us and do it at a board retreat sooner rather than later. Would be something I would like to see. I would also, we had talked also about, just in general conversation with Mrs. Chavez about the idea of resuming policy reviews section by section to also bring on leadership, whether it be at the building level, the department level, district level, because we may see wording in there. I know that there have been other times that we've reviewed some board policies that there has been some wording that has struck some members of our leadership with fear or trepidation, because what does that look like without it being nicely operationalized and clearly defined? So I definitely would want to have stakeholders at the table once we move forward with the plan for review.
Okay, I'm with you that I support what you're telling me. I'm just going to go ahead and make my comment, and I definitely don't expect to do this today, but it's been a year now that I came back to the board, and we have a glaring weakness in our policies, and I think we have a potential for disaster if we don't come to some decision in the near future, because we're purchasing these policies from the Policy Service, and we're getting advice from an attorney that's not an attorney, and we're not being given any guarantees, and so we're having to take these policies and then hire an attorney on top of that to review these policies to make them work. And so we'll go ahead and schedule a retreat on this and have an attorney there. But like I say, the longer we delay it, the better chance we are of creating a disaster.
Absolutely.
So,
Agreed.
so at this point in time, I'd take a motion to table this item right now.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I move to table item L, discussion and approval regarding adopted NMSBA policy manual, Los Lunas Schools, board policies and future policy development, specifically to be first discussed at a board retreat in the very, very near future.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Osowski to table this item, and we have a second by Mr. Vickers. We will schedule, in the absence of Sonia Moya, we really need her here and an attorney, but we will schedule a board retreat and spend considerable amount of time in the near future. I can't tell you how near that's going to be because I understand that she's not going to be here for the next meeting. So cross our fingers and we'll take it from there. Ms. Sanders, how do you vote?
I'll abstain.
No, you're abstaining, that's right. Okay. Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Salesky, how do you vote? Yes, I vote yes. So item is tabled by a vote of 3-0, one person abstaining. We'll move on to item M, presentation and approval of 9 through 12 curriculum for English, language arts, math, science, and social studies.
Board President, Mr. Otero, I would like to invite Ms. Chelsea Cervantes, our Director of Secondary Programs, to present the curriculum for English Language Arts, Math, Science, and Social Studies for grades 9 through 12.
Mr. President, members of Los Lunas School Board of Education, Superintendent Chavez, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight about our curriculum at a glance. This is a continuance, in a way, of the presentation that Ms. Monica Rivera presented last month for our K-8. Tonight I'll be focusing on our 9-12 core curriculum. Through this process, our goal is to create a guaranteed and equitable standard-based learning experience. We would like to guarantee an experience that creates consistent expectations across all schools within our district for every single student, equitable access, ensuring that every single student has access to the same high-quality standard of learning and rigor within every single classroom, and that all learning within our courses is standards-based and aligned to New Mexico standards. Here we see the district pacing overview. This should look very familiar. We do utilize the same template as the K-8 overview uses as well. You can see that we have the pacing laid out into our 3 6-week sections for each semester. We also have course overviews as well as HQIM integration with each module as they are paced out throughout the semester. Within the course overview that is provided for each content area, we see multiple pieces to support teachers at every level of instruction and every level of experience. So we see that we have individualized pacing for each module. It's intentional, it's integrated within our HQIM alignment, and we also have enduring understandings as outlined for each module through our HQIM and standards alignment. These supporting documents hold 3 main areas for each teacher for that support. This example comes from our Algebra 1 unit. We see that it begins with unit rationale, and again, those enduring understandings, so that every single teacher at the beginning of the course understands what is the big picture idea here for the goals of that course. Can you zoom in on that just a little bit? Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you so much. The second portion of that document looks at some essentials for every single teacher. We list essential questions and unit standards as outlined throughout the HQIM and as they align to New Mexico state standards. The learning objectives are also outlined, as well as vocabulary, in order to ensure that academic rigor is being reinforced through correct vocabulary usage. And this also supports our students who may need some extra support in that vocabulary area. And also, I'd like to draw attention to that last line there, which is prior knowledge. We know that gaps in knowledge occur for our students. In order to support teachers in filling those gaps and meeting our students where they need to be met, we do have this prior knowledge area so that a teacher could go back and say, if a student is struggling with this particular concept, what standard might I go back to do an intervention lesson with in order to begin that process? And then last but not least, to support high-quality instruction within the classroom, we have our curricular resources. Here you'll see Khan Academy, McGraw-Hill, and ALEX listed. And then also our New Mexico instructional scope under instructional resources, which is another document that we rely on heavily in order to ensure that our teaching is aligned with the expectations found within the New Mexico state standards. And these components ensure instructional coherence and increase opportunities for teacher collaboration, strengthening our ability to provide continuous high-quality instruction. This is all built upon the idea of a continuous improvement process. None of this documentation is stagnant. It's a living document that we expect to be utilized regularly, revisited, and updated to meet the needs of our community and our students. So we will be looking at student achievement data, utilizing that data to look at student outcomes, ensure equitability, then moving on to teacher and administrative feedback. This helps us to ensure that we are refining these instructional opportunities for our students in a timely manner. Then we look at the standards and HQIM updates. This ensures that we are not just blindly teaching from an HQIM, but looking at the state standards and ensuring that alignment is there and that it is strong. And then we also want to be able to incorporate enhancements, if that's from the publisher or from another approved intervention or supplementary resource. And then last but not least, we have the annual curriculum review. We will take the feedback from teachers, from our data, from our students and community members in order to ensure that we are creating the best pacing and guidance for our teachers for student success ultimately. So we have also created the Parent Roadmap to Success. And this looks very similar to the one that we have for K-8. We've adjusted it just a little bit for the 9-12 piece. You'll see here this example comes from high school ELA. And instead of it being broken down kind of by topics within ELA, we look at overviews of the entire 9-12 experience. So what does the arc of the instruction look like when your student comes in as a freshman? What should they be focusing on? What should they be able to do by the time they leave high school? We also have a small adjustment in that little box there in the center of the page. On K-8, I believe it says things to talk to, or questions to ask your student's teacher. Here, we switch the focus on questions to ask your student. The goal here is to help empower parents and students to have meaningful conversations about the things that are happening within their school day, and also to empower students to be their own best advocate. And then here at the bottom, even as an educator, as a high school educator, there are going to be times where I may or may not know exactly how to support my student through this high school journey. And so we really tried to create tangible ways that parents can remain engaged with their students throughout the educational process. And then just over there to the right, reinforcing the idea that the things that these students are going to walk away with through this arc of education is their college and career readiness. Whatever path they choose, we want them to understand how the skills they learn within these courses will benefit them in the future. Thank you so much, and I stand for questions.
Questions? Dr. Osowski?
Few comments. I very much appreciate all of the effort and the improvement that has gone into this. And as I said with the elementary, I would still like to see, and I understand that this is a living document and things are being added and there's a lot going on with 4 different content areas. I still would like to see under the essentials, EL strategies and instructional supports, specifically strategies for differentiation or scaffolding. And one of the other things that I would really like to see is connection to the supplemental resources for Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction, because we do have those requirements in ESSA, and it would be nice to have that documentation, plus to support new or new to the content teachers. I also would like to request that the board receive a presentation about the teacher and administration feedback that's listed on the continuous improvement process slide. Maybe that would be nice to see about January after this has been working for a semester, so the board can be informed about the progress and what are anticipated or proposed changes to the curriculum at a glance. But other than that, congratulations. I think this is making nice progress. It's becoming a standout document. Thank you. It's nice to have one of those.
Comments?
Yeah, thank you.
Comments? Questions?
I do have comments.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. With the exception of Ms. Sanders, I think the rest of us grew up reading books, one page following the other. Our students now don't know that. They don't understand that. They Google something, and then it leads them to something else, and it looks like a bush. How do you teach in that way that brings them to an organized process of learning something?
That is a fantastic question, and I think one that educators everywhere grapple with. I can speak to that from my own experiences and kind of from my own ideology, is that especially when we're dealing with high school students, what we have to recognize is that they have agency and they have voice and they have expectations of their own and desires. So our job as educators is to ensure that we are creating a pathway that allows for that exploration in a way that allows our students, one, to leave with the goals that we have intended. We still have learning objectives. We still have standards that we have to get them to. And I think that the more that we really honor what our students are trying to tell us, because they do live in a different age than we grew up in. School looks very different today than what I attended even. And so, or my own children are going through very different experiences than I could have ever dreamed of. And so I think the more that we allow our students to really have agency and that we as teachers are transparent, and that is one of the things that this document allows us to do. When we have clear learning objectives and when we have really well thought out planned activities that are aligned to that objective, that are aligned to the standard, then our students they can explore in a bushy way, yeah, and ask kind of novel questions that still allow teachers to guide back to that main point of that, what we're calling the enduring understanding. Yeah, and that's why teaching is an art, right? Yeah. It truly is.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Sanders.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions, but first I'd like to thank Mr. Vickers because I think he was saying that I'm considerably younger than the rest of the board, and I'll take that any day. So a couple of things. Professional development for the teachers, you know, what does that look like? And when you say collaboration, are you talking about PLCs?
Yes, within our collaborative team meetings, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
And so is there a set guideline from the district for this is what you're expected to do and this is what you're going to do in a PLC?
Yes, so what we are working on is helping our coaches and our principals really understand what we want that process to look like. We have agendas that are helpful in that guidance. And then really we're kind of needing to get back to the basics on that, right? And have our school sites, because we have school sites at varying levels of comfortability with that process. And so as a CIA team, we have a comprehensive plan this year to help support our site building administrators in that process specifically, in the instructional leadership piece of that. So yes, those are coming, and we have that planned already for the entirety of the year on how we are going to support our building principals in that process. And then what does professional development look like? Last year, through our HQIM grant, I had one for science and Ms. Rivera had one for CLSD. We've learned quite a bit about the science of implementing new HQIM materials. And so our goal is to really help ours, again, focusing on instructional leadership, bringing in high quality professional learning, one, not just having a kickoff and saying, here's a platform, good luck. That's not implementation. So having teacher leaders is paramount. Having building administrators who understand that instructional leadership and who know exactly what it needs to look like at the building level, and then how can we support them at the district level to be successful. And we are utilizing the HQIM implementation documentation from the state to help guide us through that and to help have those very concrete conversations with our building principals and our teacher leaders so that we can better support as a district.
Yeah, and I think that some at least quarterly updates on, you know, what we're doing and how we're doing it and what the action steps are to the curriculum at a glance, and then the deeper documents that you were providing to the staff.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions or comments, but I support it, so thank you.
Thank you.
It's time for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve item M, the presentation and approval of 9 through 12 curriculum for English language, arts, math, science, and social studies.
I second.
We have a motion by Mr. Vickers and a second by Dr. Osowski to approve item M, presentation and approval of 9 through 12 curriculum for English language, arts, math, science, and social studies. Ms. Sanders, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Osowski, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Passes 4-0.
Thank you, Ms. Orontes.
Okay, we'll move to item N2, approval of handbooks, Los Lunas Schools Facility Use Handbook. Dana Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I have a couple of questions regarding the facility use handbook, and the first is our eligible users. Have we had an attorney look at this?
Board Member Ms. Sanders, yes, we have.
Okay. And what have they, and they feel like this meets the equal access laws?
They said it was approved, and the way it's read, they just had one item to add. It was an addition at the end of the handbook that we ensure that all users and guests follow all board policies and facility guidelines, or they will be removed to ensure safety and security.
I didn't like the statement about reserving the right to deny an application that's inconsistent with district values, not knowing what, that's kind of an arbitrary statement, so. I'm surprised that an attorney goes, that's okay, because you know how they are. Anyway, moving on, I also have a question about the facility rental rates, and this is going to apply to all, like YAFL and youth teams that use our facilities. So what I'm calculating is between $200 and $320 per group if you were to use an elementary field or a high school field. And I'm just looking at the field costs for somebody that was having a practice twice a week or something on a field.
So is that for the, board member Saunders, is that for the middle schools and elementary schools, or for the high schools?
High school, and high schools are the high number and elementaries are the low number. I guess the point that I'm making is that for youth leagues and that kind of thing, they're not in profit, so I'm not sure that we wouldn't be eliminating their use of our facilities, such as Youth Basketball League. I don't even know if that still exists, but the Youth Basketball League, YAFL, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all of those nonprofit groups.
So to provide some history on the fee schedule, we did look at surrounding districts to see what they are charging. They actually charge on an hourly basis, between 1 to 3 hours or 4 to 8 hours, and they're charging anywhere from $40 to $50 an hour. When you look at their gymnasium monthly fee and their football stadium and track monthly fee, it's substantially higher. We are not like other districts, but we do have costs that we have to pay. And we are seeing an increase in our facility usage, which is increasing our wear and tear on our facilities. And so we would need that, those funds would go to support the maintenance of our facilities. We're definitely up to change pricing menus if you feel we start it too high. That is something that we will do. Looking at other school districts, though, they do charge per hour. And we do have some teams that are based in Albuquerque, but do have team members that do live in Los Lunas, and they are students, but they're starting to use our facilities because they're not using facilities north of us. And that has increased the number of facility requests to our district. So we are also looking at security. We have our gates that are open now, longer hours, so we do have to pay some of our employees to go and shut those gates. We're looking at a remedy, but not all of our gates are Jurassic gates, and they do not close automatically. We cannot keep those gates open all evening until the late hours. We did have break-ins last summer at one of our high schools, and we do not want to experience that, so we do not want to invite people to come in. We need to make sure that those gates are locked.
I would be concerned that we would be eliminating some opportunities for our kiddos that need those activities to keep them from doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Because I think that the cost would be prohibitive or passed on to parents. Because they're not collecting fees from the kids necessarily. Those are my concerns.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Mrs. Chavez, is there a possibility that there could be a graduated fee schedule? So, for instance, if an organization did come and it's I don't know, the puppy dog walkers of America or whatever. They're brand new. And they don't have a lot of funds, but this would be a place for them that over the first year, the district could consider as a startup activity, for instance, that their fee could be significantly reduced with the understanding that if they stayed with Los Lunas Schools and wanted to continue this relationship, that the fees would be escalated, so that they would have some proper planning, et cetera. But I do hear your concern about the increased facility use from our neighboring districts. There was one board president from a district north of us who was talking about the abuse that their district facilities are taking from everybody in the community, and it's coming back to haunt their budget because they're one of the only places that has a facility, right? They're the only place that has a gym. They're the only place that has a cafeteria, so for weddings and blah, blah, blah. So we've got to find a balance in there somewhere, but possibly that would be a consideration that you could present the board with.
I agree, absolutely. One other item to note, we did have a group ask us if they could use one of our high school football stadiums for a tournament that drew, or it was a camp that drew a large amount of participants, and they charged a large amount of money and used our facility very well. I'll just leave it at that. And we can't recoup those costs, considering what they profited off of using our facility.
So quite possibly then the language for the facility use needs to be that a proportion of our fee will be, or our fee will be based on the revenue that they anticipate bringing. Because quite frankly, if they're profit and we're paying for it, then that would be a fair consideration. But that doesn't, right now it's not included in the handbook, so that could be something that we could offer. And possibly we could table this to the next meeting where you could bring those suggestions back.
Absolutely.
Would you be willing or open?
Absolutely. This is the first time that we've drafted a full facility use handbook. We have our master library schedule that has a page that identifies the fee schedule, but it is not comprehensive enough. That's why we decided to move in this direction. And it was an eye-opener looking at what some of the other school districts charge. We certainly would not want to do that, but looking at what some of them charge, they're looking at $150 an hour to use a gym, which that's not something we would do to our community, but that is happening in other school districts.
It could be something, though, that we consider for an outside agency coming in, especially if they're charging.
Yeah, that's the nonprofit rate.
Significant
The other
fees.
rate for profit is $250 an hour.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Pretty extensive.
So this is a no intention to not have our community use our facilities. We want them to use our facilities. They are our students, they're our community. They live here, they pay into the use of these facilities. We recognize, though, that costs are increasing. We turn those football lights on, the baseball stadium lights on, softball lights, all the big stadium lights that turn on, it's a cost for Los Lunas schools.
Absolutely.
Mr. Vickers, you have any comments?
Yeah, there was an editorial to the Journal a few months ago from a guy in a running group who's really miffed at APS because all their tracks are locked up, and walkers or runners sort of like to use a track. They've got a measurement, they know what a quarter mile is, and it's also sort of a safe place to do that where they don't have to worry about dogs and stuff like that. So do we have our tracks available that people can just go and walk or run around them?
So if Los Lunas High School is open, they are able to use the facility at Los Lunas High School. We don't see as much use at Valencia High School because of the location.
Yeah. So Los Lunas is open? I mean, I don't have a problem with them locking it at night. But yeah, daytime hours, just leave it open.
Correct.
So people can use it. Okay.
But it's gonna cost you $25 every time you wanna run around the track.
I think that differentiation, though, could be clarified. If you're an individual going up to use the track ad hoc versus an organized sport that would bring in multiple spectators or participants or whatnot. So maybe some clarification with some language and a restructure, a proposal that might help us with a little bit of the angst or the concern.
I mean, it's just like walkers that walk around inside a mall,
Right.
usually before all the stores open, you know.
Yeah, in fact, just to give you some reality, Mr. Seiss and Mr. Hayes and Lead Officer Guerrero were just managing a situation that happened on one of our stadiums. It's because it's open,
At one of my.
and it's
my-
early morning hours,
Yeah.
and it's impacting our students and their coaches.
One of my many trips,
Well, I'm going to
I went to, there was a community stadium, and I thought, oh, that's a good place, I'll run there. And I knew there were people there. There were cars there, the gates were open, and I thought, are they gonna come down and talk to me about this? And, you know, I spent some time there and nobody said anything, so.
Well, I'll go ahead and make my comments. I do see a lot of requests coming in to use facilities, and it is a concern, and it can get expensive for repairs and vandalism. But I would suggest that we give it a little bit more thought and bring it back to the next meeting. And see if we can come into a place of compromise, but here again, let's look into it some more. Okay.
We will definitely do that for our next meeting. Thank you
All
for
right.
the feedback.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I move to table item N, approval of handbooks, number 2, Los Lunas Schools Facility Use Handbook, to the next regularly scheduled board meeting.
We have a motion by Dr. Osowski to table item N2, Los Lunas Schools Facility Use Handbook, until the next board meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vickers. Ms. Sanders, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Dr. Osowski, how do you vote?
Yes?
And I vote yes.
Can I take a quick break?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm going to take a 2-minute break.
You want to break at 8:07?
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Otero?
Yes.
I move that the board go back into regular session at 8:10 PM.
Okay, well, we're back in, we're back in the meeting. We're moved to item P on the agenda, that's new business. board member requests for topics for upcoming board work sessions and/or board meetings and/or retreats.
Just to reiterate, Mr. President, that for the first meeting in August, to have a presentation from the audit committee, suggestions to address the special audit findings. The second meeting in August, to have a discussion and possible action or approval for those suggestions. We'll be seeing the facilities use handbook again, and then we'll be looking forward to a retreat for the board, probably in September. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that would be for the primary topic of discussing the continuation with NMSBA, policy service, and/or a schedule or a plan to update BOE policies and consideration of advice partners' existing policies.
Mr. Vickers, any comments?
No, I think Dr. Osowski covered most of it.
Ms. Sanders?
Yes, Mr. President. So the only thing that I think that I would just like to add for a little bit of detail is maybe specific actions the board might need to take in response to the work that the audit committee is doing, and anything that may not be a specific situation for them to necessarily deal with, but rather just the board needs to deal with. We might need to discuss those topics as well, related to the audit, to the special audit.
All right. We'll move to item Q on the agenda, announcements of meetings. July 31st, 2026, attendance at Los Lunas Schools District Convocation, 1776 Emilio Lopez Road, Los Lunas. Los Lunas High School, a quorum in attendance, that one be at 8 a.m. August 11th, 2026, the Audit Committee, attendance by invitation only, and that's at the conference, the CEO conference room, 2 p.m. August 11th, 2026, Finance Committee at the CEO conference room at 3:30 p.m. August 11th, 2026, a regular board meeting here at the Central Office Boardroom at 5 p.m. August 25th, 2026, a regular board meeting here at the Central Office Boardroom, and that's at 5 p.m. Last item is adjournment. Do I stand for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion by Dr. Osowski to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vickers. Ms. Sanders, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dr. Osowski, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Meeting is adjourned.
I'm taking my 3B.
Aren't they the cutest?
All right, we have signatures.
Did you get a pencil?
Who?
Did you get a pencil? This is my favorite one. It's right here. It is my favorite.
There is an advantage.